Welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast, where we dish on everything from the alpha male to the sensitive soul. If you found yourself lusting after a fictional character, you've come to the right place. Here's your hosts, Faith Andrews, Elisabeth Grace, Livia Jamerlan, and B.A. Wolf. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Boyfriend podcast. As you are not seeing anything wrong with your computer screen, you are just seeing Elisabeth and myself because welcome to our Book Boyfriend podcast March Madness edition. So, March Madness, we decided that instead of giving you one or maybe two podcasts in the month of March, we decided to break it down and have multiple podcasts where we read a book that was released in March, and we gave you kind of like our own individual podcast. But because Elle and I have very similar taste in books, we decided that we were going to tag team this one up and we were going to talk about Consolation by Corinne Michaels. But before we get into that, Elle, why don't you tell everybody what you're working on?
Sure, yeah, I am days away from finishing Indecision, which is, I guess it's a considered full length. It's just over 40,000 words, and that's sort of in the Bar Harbor world that Indiscretion was in, and that's going to be in Brenda Novak's Diabetes fundraiser box set that goes on sale on May 1st. So I am days away from finishing that and handing it in. What about you, Livia?
I'm very, very, very eager to say that I sent contingent to the proofreader today. Finally! I'm very, very, very excited. It's off to the proofreader. I have sat down with my PR team and we have settled down on a release date, though I'm not saying anything about that until I know for sure it's all done. I refuse to tell anybody a final release date, but that's what I'm working on, and hopefully it'll be out to you guys soon. So let's get into Consolation. If you have not read any books by Corinne Michaels, I like to call her the evil author, because she is the queen of mean and the queen of cliffhangers. So be warned, Consolation is 2 books. She tells you that from the very beginning, so you need to read both books. But before we get into Consolation, her books are Beloved was the first one, and then Beholden, part of the Belonging Duet. So you kind of need to read those because you do see the characters in those 2 books in Consolation. So I do advise that you read Beloved, Beholden, and then Consolation. But, so let's get into Consolation. And usually I don't read blurbs, but like I said, Corinne Michaels is the queen of mean, and this is the blurb she gives us. Ready? Book 1 in the Consolation Duet. Liam wasn't supposed to be my happily ever after. He wasn't even on my radar. He was my husband's best friend. Forbidden. But my husband is dead and I'm alone. I ache for him and I reach for Liam. One night with Liam changed everything. Now I have to decide if I truly love him or if he's just a consolation prize. That's the blurb for this whole entire book, and there's so much drama that happens in this book, and it's so angsty and delicious, and Liam is the ultimate book boyfriend. And you're like, that's the blurb? Really, Corinne Michaels? That's the blurb you give us? So why don't we get right into it? Elle, what did you think about Natalie?
Obviously I felt for Natalie. The setup of the story is that Natalie's husband worked for a private security firm and was killed overseas. So she was pregnant, very pregnant at the time, and she's now a widow. So obviously, my heart went out to Natalie. She has having her first child. It's supposed to be an exciting time in her life, and instead she's finding out that her husband has passed away, and she's having to bury her husband and weeks later have a baby. So I felt horrible for her. I was like, I can't even, I don't know, first of all, props to all the military women, wives and moms and girlfriends out there, because I don't know how I would do it. I don't think I could do it, honestly. So I felt horrible for her. That said, so the story picks up a few months later, after she's, as she's dealing with the grief and dealing with a new baby and learning to be a mother. And I thought it was realistic how she was dealing with the grief. She was almost like, especially because she did have a new child. And, Livia, you have a little baby too, so you know how it's all consuming. Mm-hmm. So I think it was almost like a blessing in disguise, in that she almost like pushed her grief to the side and just focused on, like, I have a new baby I need to raise, and she didn't deal with it. And I think that a lot of women would do. I think I probably would do the same thing. I'd be like, I got a job to do, and I'll just deal with that later and try, because you know it's going to be horrible to deal with.
Hmm.
So I thought she was strong, but you knew it was going to come to a head. At some point, she's going to have to deal with what's going on with the loss of her husband. So I really liked her character. What about you, Liv?
I loved her. I thought she was strong, like you said, and I think she had it like in the back of her mind. It was like another deployment for her. He's not here. I don't want to talk about it. It's not really happening, and she had to be strong for Arabelle. And I mean, when you meet Liam, he's like, "Oh, how are you?" And her response is always, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." And I actually really I highlighted this quote that it says, "I don't get to be whatever else. I have Arabelle, which is their baby daughter. I say as I look at the baby in my arms, I have to be fine. The steel wall I hide behind is strong and solid. I'm safe there." So she, like you said, she has to be, she has to build a world to protect her little one and not worry about anything behind her or around her, because in real life, she has somebody to protect, and that's the baby. She can't worry about what happened or what she's going to do with her husband's motorcycle or car or his arrangements or his finances or the mortgage. She doesn't have time for that. And that's when we meet Liam. Liam refuses to go away. He's like that annoying friend that's just like constantly pushing her and constantly pushing her to go and sell the car and get the car ready and call the mortgage and make sure the bills are paid and all this other stuff. And you really fall in love with Liam right away, because he's just little things. Like when he was helping her screw things in, and he's kind of making it a joke, and it's like the first time she's really laughing, and you're just like, wow. Like, I've read Corinne Michael's books before. I've read Beloved and Beholden, and I really like Jackson Cole, but move over, Jackson. Liam's in town. Like, he's active duty, so he's not working for Cole's security firm. I think that's what it's called. And he's like an active Navy SEAL, and he has like the amazing body, and he's super sweet to her daughter. And I mean, that's really when I was just like, I need to have Liam in my life. Like, he's become one of my top book boyfriends because of, just okay, so I have a thing with guys and kids, right? I think it's adorable, and especially when you're raising a kid that isn't yours. And there's a quote I actually highlighted from it. It says, he was saying to Natalie about her daughter Arabelle, "I love this little girl. I mean, she's freaking adorable. Other than the diaper thing, if she could use a toilet, we'd be golden." Like, he's just so funny, and he came into her life at the right moment, and he actually helped her, I guess, really get over her husband. What did you think about Liam, Elle?
I loved Liam. I agree. I think that Liam like pushed Jackson down a step on the ladder for me. Like, Jackson's hot and all, but I was like, Liam had me swooning early, like really, really early. I just loved how like supportive he was, and you could tell that there was real bond of friendship between them, like right from the beginning. And I really felt like, he stepped in because it was his best friend's wife, and he, had the best of intentions in doing so. And I can see why Natalie fell for him. I mean, I know that some people might be like, "Oh my God, it's, her husband's best friend. How could she?" But it wasn't like that at all for me in the book. It was like a natural progression, as the weeks and months and their interactions went on. For me, it was completely natural. It didn't feel ick at all, because, it was her husband, her deceased husband's best friend. I was like, pushing him on sooner, like, come on, people.
And I think she did really great with that. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, they were insta love in 3 months. It was like within like a course of a year that they actually started, to fall for each other. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I think the timeline, the way Corinne did it, was perfect. It was believable, and it made it so that you didn't look badly on either of the two main characters. Like, it was completely believable that they fell in love.
Yes, I agree that it was very believable. It was great, and you always had Natalie's. You do have both POVs in this book, but you kind of have more Natalie's, and I really could relate to it because it was always a constant struggle for her. And she's like, "He's my husband's best friend, but yet I reach for him." Like, you don't. She doesn't want to, and she knows how dangerous it is to be with Liam because she's lived that life before. And that's I'm gonna actually take that as a segue into our I Wish I Wrote That, because there's a quote that Corinne Michaels did, and I thought that was perfect. So if you listen to the Book Boyfriend podcast, you know we have certain segments. The swoon-worthy moment, erection selection, I Wish I Wrote That, and I think that was it. I believe so.
Usually the first moment you really fell in love with the hero.
Yeah.
Like your first, like, I love him. Yeah.
So I'm going and we're pushing into the I Wish I Wrote That, because like you had mentioned earlier about Natalie, and not even Natalie, about the mothers and the wives and the sisters and people who are part of that military life. This was the most amazing I Wish I Wrote That I have highlighted in the year 2015. I was built for this life. Not every woman can be a military wife, but even fewer can handle being a SEAL wife. You have to love deeper, stand stronger, but know that at any moment, bonds can break. I mean, my husband's not in the military, so I don't understand that, but to actually see it in black and white, I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. At any moment, your doorbell could ring, and somebody could just be like, I'm sorry, your husband was killed in war, and you're just like, I'm now supposed to pick up the pieces. So what about you, Elle? What was your I Wish I Wrote That?
Mine was, I believe the setup to this was sort of like Erin's passing, and she's starting to have these feelings for Liam, and Liam, throughout the course of them, discussing how they felt about each other and their changing feelings, he was very clear that Natalie was the one that was going to set the pace on this. That if she wanted to stop things, she could, and if she wanted to push ahead, then he would support her either way. And so at the end, close to the end of one of the chapters, Natalie says, now I have to figure out how to lead a dance that I don't know the steps to. And I really liked that metaphor. I thought, it's true, because she's holding the reins here of what's going to happen, but she has no idea what to do, how to move forward, because it's not something she's ever, she hoped she never would have to experience, and she's not sure what to do. So I loved that quote.
Now, what was the moment that you fell in love with Liam?
For me, it was when he came to see Natalie and Arabelle, and he brought Arabelle the little gift, and he says, I got this for Arabelle before you had her. When I was overseas, I thought it was something a little girl should have, but, well, I'm never having one. And I thought it was so cute. Like, it was before, like anything at all between them. It was just a friendship gesture at the time, and I thought it was cute that I'm picturing this Navy SEAL, on the other side of the world, and he sees this little thing, and he thinks, oh, that'll be cute, for their baby. And I just thought it was a really good indication of, who he is at the core of himself, that he's thinking of other people. So what about you?
I fell in love with him when he showed up at the hospital. So throughout the book, they're kind of falling back and forth to each other. Like, he's fighting his feelings for her, she's fighting her feelings for him. And he goes to the bar, and he's trying to forget her, like every guy would. He's just like, okay, I'm just going to go do my thing, and, she's forbidden, I can't go there. So her daughter gets sick, and I guess her phone accidentally dials him, and she's at the hospital with him, and he shows up, and he stays. Like, I was just like, why would you? Like, he could have gone and, had gotten some nanners and been a happy man. But no, he decided to go with her and just sit at the hospital and just sit there and just hold her. And, like, it's going to be okay. Your daughter's going to be okay. And I'm just like, yeah.
I know.
Like, who's Jackson Cole? I'm sorry, Corinne Michaels. I know he's your muffin. I know all of that. But I'm sorry. I'm claiming Liam. He's definitely swoon-worthy.
Well, you know what I also loved about that point, Liv, is that when he first came in and he explains to her, like, your phone called me and you weren't answering when I was saying hello. And he's like a little choked up and upset about the fact that she didn't call him.
Yeah.
And he says something, and he kind of like stutters and trips over his words, and he says, like, I thought you'd call.
Yeah.
And then, like, I forget how she describes it exactly because I didn't write the quote down, but like you could tell he was so crestfallen that like she didn't automatically reach out to call him for help, And I was like, oh.
I'm like, oh. I know, just like you're sitting there, like you're a single mom, right? Because your husband's dead, and your daughter's sick for the very first time, and you don't know what to do. The little poor thing seizes, and you're rushing to the emergency room. You're frantic. You have no one to call, and here comes this Navy SEAL who throws the curtain, like, there you are, and you're just like, yes, he's saving the day.
Yes.
Now, let's go into our swoon-worthy moment. What was your swoon-worthy moment, Elle?
Okay, well, I have two. Sorry, I'm cheating. Okay, so my first is it's not so much a moment, is it's sort of the picture that Corinne created. So they go away on this little holiday to the beach. Well, they live on a beach, but regardless, they go to a different beach for a little holiday in a beach house. And I think it's after dinner one night, and they're just taking a walk on the beach. And Liam has Arabelle in his arms, and he's, got his other arm around Natalie. And she says, as we walk, Arabelle tucks her head into his shoulder, and he protects her. My heart fills with love watching him care for her. He loves Era, and I love him. And I just had like this perfect picture of them in my head walking down the beach, and the sun is it's like, it was just, and I just thought, oh, like, I was just like, oh my God, it's so like perfect. I can just picture him holding the little baby. I don't know. Anyway, so that for me, I was like, it's not so much something like a grand gesture of him, but I just really liked that moment. And then the other one was when they were being intimate, and he says, no other woman will have my heart, Liam assures me. No one else has ever had my heart, only you, Natalie. Because she really is the first woman that he's ever loved. He's never been in a real serious long-term relationship. And I just like that he professed that to her. So what was your swoon-worthy moment or moments, Liv?
I actually cheated too. I have two. It was really hard. And if you follow Corinne Michaels on Facebook or Goodreads or Twitter or Instagram, you see that her teasers are all over the place. And her teasers are actually like all of the greatest moments. Like you're just like, you can't pick just one. So I actually picked one that was actually her teaser. And it's when Liam is finally confessing to Natalie that, he had gone out on a date with this girl. And he says to her, I was thinking about you all the time and I wanted to stop. I wanted to get you out of my fucking mind. Liam's voice is low and almost angry. Why didn't you sleep with her? I asked apprehensively. Because she wasn't you. And I was just like, swoon, highlight.
Yeah.
I'm like, any girl wants to be like, oh yeah, I didn't sleep with her because she wasn't you. And I'm like, perfect. That's great.
Yeah.
Like that makes it all worth it. And then my other swoon-worthy moment, I have it highlighted, but I don't have the notes of exactly where it was in the book. But this was a quote he said to her about like them falling in love with each other. I wanted to fight it, but I can't fight you. You're supposed to be mine, and I won't lose you. And I was just like, if a guy ever said that to me, swoon. I'm just like, and then I keep picturing him like this Navy SEAL. And the best way is, he's not your typical book boyfriend because he wears like this beanie, and now we keep going to the store, and I'm like, I want a beanie. I'm like, I want a little beanie. Just put on my head. And then he has like a 3-day scruff all the time, and you're just like, I just want to run my hands through his scruff and like tug on his beanie. I'm just like, so yes, I was definitely swooning over him. And then I think that brings us, are we doing our Kiss, Marry, Do, Elle? Or are we?
I think we should pass because the other girls aren't with us, probably.
Yeah. And so I guess our final one is...
But I will have it said that I would marry Liam. He would be my Mary.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. Definitely. And so our newest segment, before it used to be called casting, and now we are calling it our erection selection because Elle always has delicious pictures to show us. So I will go first because I don't usually bring pictures to the party. My erection selection for him, and it's only because Corinne Michaels had posted it as her Liam, and I saw the picture before I started reading the book, and I was like, now I see it. And it's Channing Tatum from, I imagine him like if you watch the movie Dear John, where he was, in the army or so that's my erection selection. That would be Channing Tatum would be my Liam. What about you, Elle? Where's my picture?
Let's go. I'm going to disappoint today. I don't have a picture. I know.
The nerve.
I know. I had trouble with my printer. I'll make up for it next time. But for me, I had pictured, okay, although first I will say, if you look at Corinne's covers and her teasers with the same couple from the covers, it's like perfection in these two people.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was like, wow, this is like Liam and Natalie. It's so weird. So definitely check out her covers and her teasers. But for me, I was picturing Chris Hemsworth.
Ooh.
That's kind of who, because like there's like I've seen a lot of pictures of him too with his daughter, with his baby daughter and stuff.
Yeah, and there's a lot of teasers with that one too.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, and I love him, so hey, so yeah, I kind of had him, sort of a mixture of him and the guy on Corinne's cover in my head the whole time I was reading. Which I mean, either of those guys was fine by me. So.
And all right, so I think that wraps it up for us with our Consolation discussion from Corinne Michaels. If you have not read this book, please make sure to pick it up, and also pick up Beloved and Beholden, because those were really, really delicious. And Conviction will be out soon, and I know there's a pre-order up for that. So before we part ways, I want to remind everybody, we are not a blog. We do not review. We are authors. There's usually 4 of us, but today there's only 2. And we don't review. We are just authors who like to talk about book boyfriends, and that's really what we are. And you can find us at www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. We are on Facebook and Twitter, and I think that's really, and we're definitely on iTunes. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes, where you can hear more about our other book boyfriends. Until next time, bye guys.
Bye guys.
Thanks for joining us. You can find out who will be on upcoming shows and what books we'll be discussing, as well as more about our hosts at www.bookboyfriendpodcast.com. See you next time when we add another boyfriend to the ranks.